Hi European Association for Flower Growers, my name is Ellie Pay and I'm the co-creator of the Young Propagators Society, which is a society but we bring out a zine quarterly, a free zine that is contributed by our members, for our members. So please look us up on Instagram and we'll be having a website launch very soon. I hope the tutorial that I'll be showing you now will help you on your propagation journey. A good propagation technique you can create lots of plants from one stock plant in winter is root cuttings. Certain plants are able to have root cuttings taken, usually ones that naturally sucker or if their roots are disturbed they shoot. These include herbaceous perennials like phlox, echinops, alcea, hollyhock, Papaver orientale, which is this one, anemone, asclepias, milkweed, astilbe, some chrysanthemum species, eryngium, baby breath, calameris, which is Japanese aster, and peony. You take root cuttings when the plant is dormant, not only to know that the food has been put back into the roots, making them good and strong, but also the plant isn't active, so as not to disturb the plant. So once your plant has died back for the year, or in this case it hasn't been putting on new growth, and before all the buds appear, you take root cuttings. This makes it a great propagation method to spread out the workload over the year. So here's how you do it. Prepare your working space. This must be what you do before you start, as roots pretty much, as you can see, look exactly the same. Doesn't matter what root they are or what way they are, they look very much the same, so you can get confused. So you need a clean, organised workspace. Then you dig up the plant whole or take it out of its pot. And this one, I've already cleaned the compost away from it. It had lots of fibrous roots. I've taken them off. As you can see, you still have fibrous roots here as well, but these are the roots that we're looking for. So then you'll want to find a preferably pencil width healthy root as close to the crown as you can, so they will have the most food created by the plant the previous season. So something like this is a good example. The less width you have to a root, then the longer you do it, so it has more food contained in it. Once you find a root, you cut it with a clean knife or secateurs. So I've got some options here. I've got this knife, which is round, so I can cut it, but I can't use it on a chopping board, which most people would prefer to do, as you get a nice clean cut. So I would cut like that or cut toward myself, or you can use snips, that's fine as well. So you find a root, you cut it with clean knife or secateurs. It has all these fibrous roots on it. They're not going to provide any function as a root cutting. So what you want to do is you just want to clean them off, because they won't provide function, so they'll probably just rot off. So I'm going to clean that off, and if I can't, I give it a little scrape gently with my knife, and then I'm going to trim this down a bit so it's nice and clean. Now, the important thing why you want a clean bench is because this now, like I said, all looks the same. So I want to know that this is the top and that's the bottom, because if I plant it upside down, nothing will happen, nothing will grow. So I have to plant it the right way around. Some people do an angled cut, so you can either do an angled cut at the top and a flat one at the bottom, or vice versa, and then you can always ensure that you know what way it goes. But doing that, you will always have a bit that you'll waste. So I don't do that, I just know I'm going to face them all this way, and I've got plenty of space so that I'm not going to accidentally move them about and then they rotate the wrong way, and then I get confused. So that's my root cutting. So now this is where we stick the cuttings. I've got a plug tray here for ease of potting on. So you can just have a normal tray and you can either stick them in this way, or you can stick them lying down on their side, which if you had a big tray, that might be easier. You can then do them all in lines. But I'm going to use a plug tray because then it will have rooted all the way through. Also, this is Papaver orientale, oriental poppy, so then I have each individual plant I can just pot straight into a 9cm and carry on growing, or I can plant straight out if I like. So here I've got my dibber, which is a pencil. You can use anything, and you stick it in, and then you kind of bring the compost back up. You never want to go in and then drill a hole. This is the same for seeds as well, because that then compacts the compost around it, rather than you still want oxygen in there. And then you place that in, and that one fits perfectly, and then you can cover it over. And then what you want to do is then throw some grit on top of that, or clay granule or something like that, so that it then keeps the top of the root, in case it gets exposed with the compost, keeps the top of the root moist. Because if that dries out, then it won't do anything. Do another one for you. So in and then back out again. Stick that in and then cover it over. And then I'll do one of these. If that might be a bit too long to stick in the plug tray, then what I can do is lie it on its side, which actually means that multiple points along the plant, dormant buds inside of it, could then be activated and produce lots of different shoots. So then cover that over. You can also, if it's like this one, let's do this one, which is really long, quite fibrous. To be honest, it will still do something. It might not be as quick as a plant, as strong as a plant as that thick one, but you can also turn them around like that, stick that in, and then cover that over with grit. So this is a combination of these white things, a perlite, and then just a multi-purpose compost. You can use a base compost with no fertilizer, because at the moment, as it's propagation material, it has its own food. It doesn't need to be fed. But as it will shoot up in spring, and it will still be in this whilst it does, it will then start taking in food. So if your feed is longer to stay in the compost, then you might as well use that. Get your label with your name, the date that you propagated it, and be sure to keep that in there. And then you put this into a cold frame and wait until spring. So you'll get shoots coming out of here, and then eventually fibrous roots coming down the bottom. Be sure to keep watering it, but basically it needs to stay in a cold area to go through its dormant period to then wake up in the spring. So you don't want to rush it by putting it into heat or high humidity. It just wants to stay moist and quiet in a cold frame where it's not too excessive wet or windy. And then that's about it for root cuttings. So you can produce many root cuttings from just one mother plant. This is one mother plant I've split into two. So even though I've taken roots from it, I can take more roots from this, and then I will still have something to plant back in and carry on growing, and then that can be my mother plant. Another great propagation technique for building up stock from one plant to do in the spring is single grass splits. It's half like dividing the grass, but also a bit like a cutting. Grasses can be used very attractively in floristry bouquets to give a fluid, natural feel, or to make a feature from the interesting flower shape. These grass splits can be done with herbaceous or evergreen grasses in the spring, as they produce new shoots, so the focus on the plant is to spring into growth quickly. Here's how to do it. You take your grass, you then get a big knife, you divide it into, it depends on how much growth you've got. This has not actually got all that much growth, so I'm going to use the whole thing, but you can do it into thirds, and then you can keep 1/3 as a mother plant and work on the other two. So like I say, I'm going to use the whole thing. You then split it and then take all this off, get to the bottom of the grass, and then you cut the roots off because we don't need them anymore. They'll just get in our way. And then I'm going to clean compost off of it like this, and then move that out the way. And then, so when you divide it, you get a knife or you get your hands and just divide them into different sections, and that makes it easier to then work on. And then you can make them even smaller, like this. Great. So then we've got individual grass blades. You basically want to get a whole grass blade, and then it's a bit of a technique to it, but you grab at the very bottom. What you want is between the leaf, this is all a leaf, it's a monocot plant, which means it doesn't get woody. And so this is basically just one leaf or multiple leaves. And then there's the roots, and in between that is your growing point. So you then pull that away from the rest of it, and that's called a culm, which is the crown of the plant. So let's see if I've got that. You then clean that up like this, and then cut that back, and then you can see right there, you can see that there's a bit of a hard knobbly white bit. That is the corn, and then I'm going to cut that down as well for ease of sticking and leave that there. And then I'll grab another bit. So you just want to clean off all the excess bits. But basically, like I say, you're treating it like a cutting, though it's technically just dividing. And then, you know, you've still got all of this to plant back and have as a mother plant. But count how many blades we've got here, and we can grow 50 plants just this. So here's another one. This is a big one. Clean that off. And then here you can even see that it's got a new shoot coming out. To be honest, this, whilst it has its roots, you could just grow it like that. But the idea is that if you wanted to, you could grow it with just that bottom hard culm, and that will then produce a good sized plant. Again, it's kind of like a cutting, so you don't have to wait as long as the seed would. And then you're going to put these into a nice friable compost. This is silver mix compost, so it's very very big and soft compost. Again, I need my dibber, and I don't need to do much dibbing with that. You just kind of put that in, extend it down, and then keep doing the same. And then this one, here we go, here's our big bit. So I'm going to chop that down. To be honest, I am going to chop the roots off because they're actually just going to get in my way. And I want it to produce new roots as its own new plant. And I stick that in as well. Don't stick them too deep into the compost, because then you can just rot the grass. The grasses are made for that. You know, half of it usually is underground in the first place anyway. And then you put this onto a heat mat at 12 degrees Celsius until they've rooted through, and then you can put them up. Like I say, you do it in spring when you've got new shoots coming up, so that you don't want them really long, because then it's just more fiddly. I mean, you cut them down anyway, but a new good shoot works best, because then it's really ready to just spring into growth in spring. And so that's a great way to multiply, like I say, how many plants you can get just out of this one little clump, and then you can plant the rest as a mother plant.